All right, good evening, St. Rita. We are back once again with another live interview that we've been having all afternoon in the first ever St. Rita Feast Day of Giving. For those of you just tuning in for the first time, my name is Rob Gallick. I'm a 2010 St. Rita grad. I'm the current alumni and donor coordinator in the advancement office, and we've had an absolutely incredible day today. Starting at 8 a.m. this morning, we had Father Tom McCarthy kicking us off with a great video. You can find that on our St. Rita Facebook page, all of our St. Rita social medias. And he really put a call to challenge to the St. Rita family. He said, today we're going to raise at least $15,000. That's the cost of education for one St. Rita student. The actual cost of education. Obviously, our tuition is a little lower than that, but it's because of that difference is where our St. Rita support comes into play, our donors, our alumni, all of the incredible support that we've had for many, many years. And St. Rita, as we said during the Judy Martin interview, that you have always come up to the challenge, whether we've asked you, we needed support in so many different ways over the years, whether we've been upgrading facilities or we just had different drives at the school. You guys have always come through for us. So I wanted to give you guys an update at 1 o'clock. I gave you guys a tally that we had just hit just under 13,000 with the goal of 15. Just as of right now, we have just hit over $17,000. So that is first goal down. And as Coach Kuska used to say, you could say, check that box. And so we're moving on. But St. Rita, we had put out the challenge for you that 15 was just the first goal, but we don't ever stop at that first goal. We want to make sure that as many families as possible at St. Rita High School, that we're going to make sure that we support, and all money donated today is going to go directly into the St. Rita Scholarship and Financial Aid Fund. So it's been a fantastic day. We're up over 17,000. And we have another great interview for you here. As many of you guys know, he's been around at St. Rita for many, many years as both a science teacher as well as a head football coach at St. Rita, Mr. Todd Kuska, class of 1990. Todd, thanks for joining us from your luxury cottage away.
No problem, Coach. Good to see you. Good to be here.
Absolutely. So we'll jump right into it. How you survive in quarantine? I gave a little preview. You are away at a cottage right now, so I don't want to give out that location, but I know that you're not far, but you're staying safe.
Yeah, well, it's been a little bit different. Obviously, having two kids in the house, two St. Rita students, one being a senior, Jake, and one being a freshman, Joey. It's been, there's been challenges doing the e-learning and keeping those guys focused and keeping myself focused on for my students and then for the players and things like that. So we've just been doing what everybody else has, staying safe, doing a lot of work around anywhere, when you don't normally have time for it. So we've got plenty of time to do stuff around the house. So that's what we've been doing. So just staying busy.
So I know that I wouldn't call you the most technological guy. Just getting a cell phone pretty recently.
Sure, about 4 years ago. Yeah.
I'd say you're pretty comfortable now on the computer. So how has that been for you as a teacher, being able to adapt to e-learning and had any issues with that, especially teaching science? It could be more of usually it's more of a hands-on or it's more of a project-based class. How have you kind of approached that?
Well, it was a little bit different at first. I think during the very beginning of it, I took the approach as we were kind of wrapping up a chapter before we went on spring break. So we had a little time to adapt. So I already had some things planned just to kind of wrap up the last chapter. So we did that just through some assignments. And then obviously when we knew it was going to, go beyond a week or so, we got into the Zoom meetings. I had a Zoom meeting with each of my classes at least once a week. Had some PowerPoint presentations that I presented to the guys and just kept up with them on assignments and meeting with them, making sure that they were okay. It's obviously, especially I have juniors and seniors. So it was probably a little more difficult for those guys because this was, the end of their senior year, the end of their career at St. Rita, walking the halls. So it was kind of tough dealing with some of those guys, when are we coming back? And so we made through. We made deal with what we had to, and got lessons to them and did some quizzes and tests, and it got me the ability to learn a lot more about our computer system. How to do quizzes and tests online and stuff like that. But it is what it is. Nobody expected that, these seniors, but I think our guys got through it. As most things, Rita guys are pretty resilient, and we fought through it. And hopefully, like I said, I've got Jake, my senior. We do have graduation scheduled for later on in July. cross our fingers, hope we can get that done and give these guys a good farewell like they deserve.
Absolutely. And as we talked with both Nick Aden and Chudy Martin earlier today, they mentioned some of the bittersweet moments that they felt, but both of them did really put a sign of taking some positive points out of it and really remembering some of the good memories they had. And a lot of them talked about hoping to be able to have some sort of graduation still in July. So kind of keeping our fingers crossed. But how's the Wi-Fi been holding up with you teaching? You got two guys in classes during the day.
Yeah.
I mean, has it been kind of different?
Yeah, no, it's been good. Obviously sometimes when there are times that all three of us had Zoom meetings going on at different times, different areas of the house. That was a difficult thing, making sure, okay, you take the basement, you go up there, you go here, just because, they each, we did it on the schedule during the course of the day. So, we would each have things going on. So the Wi-Fi was good. We got some stuff done and I think both of my guys got through it. And most of the students I talked to, it was difficult at times. Some guys would have Wi-Fi difficulties and problems getting some assignments in and on time and things. But, for the most part, I stayed on those guys. And I think the other teachers, we were always in communication. The science department, we had Zoom meetings ourselves. And I know the school, we all had faculty meetings to stay on top of the kids and make sure that everybody was getting through it. Difficult for a lot of guys to deal with, but I think for the most part, we were there. I know we were there for those guys and made it as easy as a transition as possible for these guys.
Absolutely. And that's really been the a key point for today is really just keeping those guys in the 2020 class. And as we mentioned earlier, Mike Johnson, who had a great message to the class of 20, said we had oftentimes you take for granted some of those senior moments and that part that they might not be able to have. So like I said, hopefully we'll be able to keep those guys around but we get to welcome them into the proud brotherhood of the St. Rita Alumni Club. So
for sure,
they get to join the end zone crew and they get a part of the handshake line when you make the walk onto the field every Friday night. So it's a cool transition to be a part of after kind of now being on the other side of it, being able to welcome these guys in.
Right.
But I do want to flip the page here. Let's get back into some football talk, some sports talk, something that we're all been looking for.
You can always talk football.
I don't want to dig too deep into last season. I know something you and I are both probably a little tired of talking about at this point, but there are so many positives. It overall was such a successful season and really put the St. Rita football program kind of back in the right shape and the Catholic League in terms of the state of Illinois. And not that it hasn't, but there's the Catholic League and the state is always as competitive as possible. And some teams are going to win and some teams are going to lose. And we were lucky enough last season. It's a bumpy road and we did our share of losing and winning. And so despite it being a successful but bittersweet season, what are some of the things that you really kind of take out of that year that you hope to build forward?
Yeah, it was great. I think the way it came about was really an awesome experience, even though, it wasn't awesome at the beginning. We got off to a great start, beating Joliet Catholic, and then those next three games we lost 3 in a row, and we lost those 3 games, as in complete different manners that you can lose a game. In Richards, we came back from behind, 3 touchdowns and almost won, but we lost. And then we go to Loyola and we're right there battling in the third quarter, going in hopefully to take a lead and tie. And we just stumble and lose. And then Montini, we were up big and just kind of fell apart and wheels kind of fell off. And so we lost in 3 different ways imaginable. But I remember the Saturday morning after Montini down in LL1, meeting with the guys before we watched film and lift and everything, just saying, hey, there's things can go one way or another. We can either band together and group together like Rita guys do and put this thing one game at a time and make a run at this. And I said, all we got to do is, we got to get in the playoffs. We got to win, 4 more games to get those 5 wins. I go, but nobody's going to stop us there. We can, easily get 1 more, win the conference. I go, if you win the rest, and finish, 6-3, we'll win the conference, and just keep going 1 game at a time. And so that day to me, looking seeing the looks in the seniors' eyes and the guys saying, we can do this one thing at a time, 1 win at a time. Let's just get it done, it was a crazy ride, as always. Especially, the championship years when you get down the States. And, I know I never look around while we're doing it. For me, I'm always focused on the game, and I'm a very crabby person. I'm not a very happy person during the season. Even when we win, I'm like, okay, we just got to go to the next one. I just hope, and I tried to get those kids to focus on not just the games, but the journey getting there too, and to have that experience. And I think as coaches, that's what we got to do. Make sure that they don't feel the pressure to win and this and that. It's a game. Football's a game. So for me, the biggest thing was turning around from 1-3 and rattling off 9 wins. It's hard to do. And in our conference, I mean, we had some ball games, and we played some tough teams, and some great experiences. So those kids fought. I love that senior class. They were, they didn't have a great freshman year. They won a conference as sophomores. Didn't have a great junior year, and then all of a sudden win the conference and go to state championship as seniors. So, it just the best thing will be if we have that graduation in July. Seeing those guys again, knowing this is the last time. Last time they ever get together as a full class. And say goodbye to St. Rita the right way. Like you said, it's kind of bittersweet for these guys. They're seniors, they're riding high. We were in the middle of Pride Week. We just had the big, pep rally and everything like that, and boom, last day of school, never went back. It was funny, as I told my son, Jake, the senior, that might have been your last day at school, and you spent the day in the gym doing fun activities, but you didn't have that opportunity to walk down the halls with your buddies and see a lot of the teachers, so I think a lot of people don't realize that these kids haven't seen their teachers except on videos and stuff since the March, I think it was 12th,
first week of March. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just as you said, it was kind of up in the air. We didn't quite know what was going to unfold, and we knew
Right.
spring break was coming up that next week, and we had some ideas of what might happen. But yeah, it has been stuff, and that just goes to show. I mean, when you look at it as a whole, that looking at the ride that these 2020 seniors have had, both and just being a part of the school and within the football program, that, as you mentioned, and being I've always felt a special connection to the 2020 class because they were my first recruiting class when I got hired. So this has been a special year for me to recruit those kids and to be able to coach, and especially having a first year up on varsity with these guys. It was a special kind of coincidental joining that I was able to take these rides with these guys. But being able to see what they've done, just as you mentioned, starting off had a rough freshman year. And a lot of moving parts, and we really, our message to them when we had talked to them was to stick together, because things tend to they sort themselves out. You stay together and stick with it. These are the things that could happen, and that's exactly the class that it was a core senior class on this team that was surrounded by so much underclassmen talent that I want to get to in a second. We're going to talk about these guys that the reason this spring is going crazy right now, but. It really just goes to show that 2020 class, how special they were in the sorts that dealing with what we're dealing with now and losing the back end of their senior year, but being able to make a run and a journey that only one other St. Rita team has been able to do in the last 20, 30 years. So, I mean, it's kind of being able to kind of take a step back, and Nick Aiden said it best. He goes, I mean, it's just one of those things you have the memories that you share that you're always going to take with you, and you do the best you can, and we'll always have those memories with those guys. So I really want to give credit to that class. I know those guys, we've talked about them often, but it's really been admirable, and the way that they've really left an impact on St. Rita is going to go down in history, and it's going to be, their year is going to be up on every banner and every board, and one of 3 teams that have made it to the top of the hill and didn't quite get there, but set the stage for the future to come. For sure. But we did talk about a lot of those other guys. It was a busy spring. For those paying attention on Twitter, it's active every day, it seems like, this year more than most. And I got a question in a minute here for you. I want to get to the college side of it, but just talk about, I mean, how about these guys? Obviously, Caleb Brown, Johnny and I talked about Caleb. He just picked up Ohio State along with a whole crew of Big Ten and other Division I offers, but seeing a lot of guys coming out. Henry Wilson, Bodie Turner really has had a big spring. Mike Gahan and Kyle James, Brian Johnson, Isaiah Bragg. I mean, we have so many guys now that have taken a step forward from this incredible season last year that was surrounded by that core senior class. That, I mean, it seems like colleges are being much more aggressive now in a state of kind of
Yeah.
uncertainty.
Yeah, I think the college world is kind of, and talking to a lot of these college coaches in the last couple of weeks, months, it's kind of gotten a little more old school with them as far as, they're not on campus, they're not seeing these guys as much. They can't get them to campus. They're evaluating more film. They're talking to coaches a lot more. They're not going to rely on spring, or obviously not spring, summer stuff, summer activities and camps. So it went old school on film. You go back 15, 20 years ago, that's how kids got, scholarships through film. And if they were able to get to a camp, they got to a camp. If not, it was just a relationship that the coaches built up talking on the phone with these guys. So it's been busy. I expected to be even busier if we were in the school, having these guys come to morning workouts and stuff like that. But these juniors and sophomores, they've really benefited from the light that the seniors kind of shine on everybody this year, leading us to that championship game. And so many of these underclassmen had a big part in it. But all those guys are getting attention. Obviously Caleb gets a lot of attention, the majority of scholarships out of anybody that we've had. But then you got the seniors to be. Henry Wilson coming back from a broken leg. He's picking up scholarships here and there. Mike Gaughan's getting a lot of attention. Kyle James, Brian Johnson, all these guys, the list goes on of these guys that are, getting that notoriety. Bodie Turner, you brought up, picked up a couple 1AA offers. And, I was talking to him and he was texting back and forth, so you think I'm going to get the MAC? And said, some of these things are going to have to wait for some senior film though. There's only so much that a lot of schools are going to do based on film. They also want to see guys, but I've been talking to more coaches. Normally they just come in the mornings and sit down, but now they don't get a chance to see guys live. So they kind of rely on us more, a little bit of their personalities and stuff like that. But we've got some great young talent in the building, and we're expecting great things, this coming season. Obviously camp is up in the air right now with the IHSA, kind of suspending the summer contact stuff, but everything changes every day around here. It's the possibility of coming to camp is still there, and then we got doubles in August. So, there's still a lot going on. We're going to hopefully, now that school is over, today was the last day of school for underclassmen. So I've been less vocal with the guys than I will be now moving forward into, now it's summertime. I didn't want to, everybody, and I know my kids are getting emails and Zooms and this and that. I didn't want to flood them too much with more football stuff. Now we'll start to do some more football stuff that we're out of school. And if we can't have camp, we'll do meetings. We'll do some drill tapes that I'm going to put together with some of the guys, and see whatever the state allows, we're going to be able to do, and we're not going to risk anybody's health or anything, because it's not necessarily just about the kids. It's about the kids' parents and grandparents, and with the whole virus thing, so we want to do it the right way, and we will. But we, fortunately, with these underclassmen, we're kind of built this year. We've got a lot of experience, so not having camp in June is not going to kill us as much as it would have in other years when you have a host of new starters. We've got about 14, 15 starters coming back with great experience, so we'll be in good shape.
And real quick, before we kind of move on from talking about recruiting, just kind of explain how, especially in past years, when you have somebody like Caleb Brown that has so many coaches getting eyes on him all the time, and you look at the trickle down kind of effect it has on so many other players getting looks, and you start getting guys getting eyes on coaches, getting eyes on guys that wouldn't necessarily be that guy, but now since they're on film, kind of go into that, how much that plays into effect for a big spring like this.
Oh, well, that's huge. Yeah, I mean, obviously Caleb's got the notoriety, and that's the big name, the big wow for a lot of these schools. But then they start watching film, and you can't just watch, obviously everybody has highlights and everybody watches highlight tapes, but coaches want to watch film. They don't want to see just the highlights, because just the highlights doesn't tell you that much about the guy. So they want to watch individual games and stuff. So as they start to look at these games, they start to look and say, wow, that guy, that guy's a stud too. What number is he? What year is he? And obviously I give them all the names and, all kinds of information. But when they're watching these films and looking at one guy, they're picking up other guys, and they're seeing this is going on with these other guys. And then that piques their interest. And, the college coaching world is just one big, carousel of coaches. They've all know each other. They've all been around. They all, so it's not just the Big Ten guys or the SEC guys that look, they've got buddies. They were all once before in the MAC or 1AA or Division II or Division III. So they communicate. And they say, wow, you know what? St. Rita's got some studs. Everybody keeps talking to me. This senior class is unbelievable. And I say, yeah, they've been through a lot. The senior class coming up, rather. The 21 guys. So they're benefiting from all that extra film from these other coaches. So it's great to have a couple guys that start to get that the big looks from all these schools, because that just trickles down. And that's exactly what's going on right now. Is it's trickling down, not to lessen the talent that these other guys have. They have it now. They're getting noticed, and now they're getting seen. So it's a great spring for our guys. It's a great spring for the football program. Unfortunately, we're not in school, but it's a great spring scholarship wise and opportunity wise. So It's been good. It's been good for the guys.
And how does that play a role? Obviously, being at St. Rita for as long as you have, you form a relationship with college coaches and guys, especially area recruiters, and you've seen guys that come in from different schools. I mean, how does that play a role just in your relationship of being able to find guys, maybe not at the Division I level, but when guys are looking for programs, Division II and especially Division III, to where, I mean, the opportunities are out there and the fit is out there for anybody that wants to play. How does that kind of play a role? I mean, being a product of that, those type of relationships. So how does that kind of play a role?
Well, that's big, being at St. Rita. I think this was my 22nd, 23rd year as the head coach. So, it's funny. I've seen guys climb the ranks from Division IIIs, the twos, the ones, to head coaches, and those relationships that I've built with them is great, because when guys move on, they might be in, obviously there's a lot of schools, Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan, that come into St. Rita. But when these coaches move on and go to other states, they still remember their roots, and they still come back and say, hey, we got some studs from St. Rita way back in the day. I hear they got some more. So these guys keep coming back because of the knowledge of the Chicagoland area and the connection that I've had with them. It's funny, yesterday actually, I was painting the house, and got a call from a coach that we used to be at New Mexico. And I go, you still at New Mexico? And he's like, no. I go, well, where are you at? He goes, well, I was at LSU last year. I was like, well, congratulations, great year. He goes, but I'm at Texas Tech right now. So I'm like, so there's in 3-4 years, guys move around so much, and not just the Division I level, Division II, Division III. It's funny now seeing guys that I recruited way back in the day when they were in grammar school, to try and, bring them over to St. Rita. Now they're out there in the coaching world, and it's cool. It's neat, especially having our guys out there coaching, Dan Collins, Keegan O'Hara, Ponio, Hopkins, Marty, having those guys, Kevin Carberry, some of our guys out there in the coaching world. It's huge because they talk, and like I said, everybody knows each other. It's a network of coaches that, and I've been involved in it so long. Now I'm trying to make myself feel old now, but
I wasn't gonna say I did a good. I didn't say any years besides your graduation year. I was like, no years. I won't do it.
I get to know these guys and develop the relationships where they know, that they know what they're going to get when they look at St. Rita. They know they're going to get a kid that's getting a great education. And so he's not going to be a kid that's going to show up at, for football camp and flunk out in the semester. They know they're going to be hardworking. They know they're going to be, good character, disciplined kids that are going to be leaders of the programs, and you're a product of it as well. And, you see Coach Ash coming in from Illinois Wesleyan all the time as well. That's 20 something years. I mean, so, it's really cool to see those connections that I've had a chance to make, and that these coaches are making with our students and guys like yourselves, and getting people involved and getting them to different schools. So, the St. Rita connection is huge out there. Not just in our alumni, but in the associations that our alumni and my guys like myself can make with these other guys. So it's really cool, and it's huge. It's a great time to be a Mustang. It's always a great time to be a Mustang, but even in today's day, it really is a great time.
Absolutely. And definitely one of my favorite things about being a part now on the coaching side and seeing guys go off to college is now when we see pictures of two guys that were our St. Rita guys playing against each other in college, or you see guys post game and of all sorts of levels and everywhere, it's really so much fun to see these guys kind of reconnect and their stories. That I had the opportunity to do it against a couple Rita guys when I was playing at Wesleyan. I had Alex Vikauskas at Carthage and Mickey Johnson and Matt Mullen, guys who I played with. That it's still that I remember mid-game being able to chirp at guys and talking like in the middle of plays and stuff, because there's always that Rita connection, and it's just become so much fun. So it's something I really didn't realize, even now as I'm learning more and more about the college football coaching world, the network of how many St. Rita alums are out there and how many guys are doing great things. And a great coach that we had a conversation about not too long ago, Coach Don Dobes out at Dartmouth. Not only a St. Rita grad, but also a Wesleyan Titan. That somebody that I just happened to have a conversation with and had no idea that we had the same path coming up. So it's really been very cool to see the huge St. Rita network, and not only people that have been associated with it in some way, but have recruited St. Rita students and know like, oh, St. Rita, like, oh, that's Chicago. Like they know like there's a reputation that goes with St. Rita all over the country that is recognized on a higher level.
Right. And those guys spread the word too. You bring up Coach Dobes. I actually just talked to him like 2 days ago about Mikey Gaughan. And talking to him and talking to these guys about players, if they know or they don't think that they can work in one area, they will work for guys, especially the St. Rita guys, to get them other places. Say, hey, I got a buddy over here that's coaching here. They're in the look for this guy. So it is a huge huge thing. St. Rita's, it's huge. I joke around with my wife and my family all the time. Whenever we go somewhere, anywhere on vacation, anywhere, we always run into people. Obviously I don't really leave the house without St. Rita SR on my chest, but we always run into somebody is that St. Rita Chicago? Oh, I went there, or I graduated, and my dad went there, my brothers went there, so it's huge, and that connection can't be overstated, the St. Rita connection.
And just a cool little story about this, not too long ago. For those who don't know, about a year and a half ago, I went over and coached in Austria in the Austrian Professional League. And after one of the games, I was talking to an American who had played in the same weekend of Ohio as we did my junior year when we went out and played Lakota West. He was playing. He was from a school in South Carolina or North Carolina that they had played the same weekend. And we had he's like, hey, are you from, did you guys go to play in Ohio, like when you were in high school? I was like, yeah. He was like, okay, like I recognize it, because the Americans all talked and stuff after games, and you get a little lowdown on everybody. And but it's a perfect example. That was just like, lo and behold, we had the connection that we had both played in Ohio in that challenge in 08, I want to say 2008.
And Kirk Herbstreit challenge.
But okay, I want to go ahead and preview a little bit. We talked about we're going to preview next year's schedule here. We did put out in the winter time, I think it was about December, January, we did announce the 2 non-conference schedules this year. We'll be opening up at home. Tentative dates, I mean, we'll leave those out, but roughly the same schedule as Chesterton, Indiana, Chesterton High School in Indiana, and Cardinal Ritter, which is out of St. Louis, Missouri. So what do you know about Chesterton and Cardinal Ritter, and what should the St. Rita Mustang fans have an eye out for those teams?
Well, Chesterton, it was tough. First off, it's tough to find games, and we were searching for months, literally, contacted probably 40 to 50 different schools, and nobody really, people in Illinois are still, you go back 15 years ago when you had to be 6-3 to make the playoffs. Nobody wanted to schedule anybody that there could be a loss on the schedule. Now they expanded to 5-4. Teams still don't want to do it. So, I searched far and low in the state of Illinois, and nobody would play us. Just schedules just didn't work out. So, searched everywhere. Finally, Chesterton. Coach Peterson coached against him. He was at Portage years before. There's a connection there too. He got back to me saying, "Hey, I remember playing you guys when I was at Portage. We did 3 years." And I said, "Oh, that's great. Let's do it again." And so he was excited about that. And in the state of Indiana, they do it differently. Everybody makes the playoffs, and so he said, he goes, "I want to play a very challenging team. I want to get us ready. I know we're going to get a tough ball game from you guys, and it'll prepare them for the playoffs." So he went ahead and wants to do it, and it's tentative for 2 years. We're going to talk about the second year, after this season. But they've got an outstanding quarterback. They've got a Division I quarterback. They've got, I think, about 10 guys coming back that have some good experience, and it's a good hard-nosed program. Outside of that, and outside of the fact that I know they're going to be practicing in about a month, whereas we can't. But it'll be a good football game. I'm excited to get them over to our place. And at the time, we had only had 3 home games, on weeks 3 through 9. So I told him, I said, "Look, we got to do this thing at my place, so we get another home game." So he agreed to that. And in 21, we're tentatively going out there week 1. So we got that one hooked up. And a few weeks later, we got Cardinal Ritter out of St. Louis. And interesting story. I know you know the story, but not everybody may. Cardinal Ritter is a national power. I think they were like a small Catholic school ranked number 1 in the country last year, before things kind of went awry for them. They came up to Chicago. They beat Nazareth. And it was determined that they had used an ineligible player that was not supposed to play from the previous season in that first week. Kind of crazy. They changed some numbers, things like that. So they were stripped of everything. Their program was shut down, and they were not allowed to play football anymore. And I believe they weren't allowed in their conference or anything like that. So they're searching for games. So they're a tough program, no doubt. One of the top teams that will play, a nation power. They got new coaching staff, new everything, and a couple of the top players. We have Caleb Brown and Henry Wilson and guys. They've got a couple of guys that are big time national recruits as well. So, and they wanted to travel. So I said, "Hey, that's fine." Instead of us making a trip down to St. Louis, we've done that trip before with not great results all the time. So I said, "Come on up to St. Rita." So they're coming up there, and for the first time ever, we've got our first 4 games are at home, which that's now all of a sudden things are in question. I'm like, can't do this, man. We have 4 home games in a row. Never had that before. And,
Yeah.
So a very tough slate to start the season, but our guys are ready for it, and as always, the preseason, we never back away from anybody. We play, nobody wants to play us, and except great teams and great programs. So it'll prepare us even more so for the playoffs, and getting into the conference, because then we go, Chesterton, Cardinal Ritter, right into Loyola, Montini, there you have. There's some tough teams right there, and then we start to get into our conference. But actually, Montini's the first conference game. But Cardinal Ritter and Chesterton be some top-notch opponents, and some good action, some good football action at 77th and Western.
And that's really not something that's been too out of the ordinary for kind of more recent St. Rita teams to travel a little bit or play teams that have
Sure.
played out of state. As you mentioned, you played Portage, Indiana. I was a part of that series.
Sure.
You went down to East St. Louis a couple times.
Yeah.
We went out to Ohio. So it's not that uncommon to see
No.
teams traveling kind of within the Midwest, but kind of more so recently, it's not uncommon to see teams usually play maybe 1 game out of state to kind of expand.
Right.
Almost for us. I mean, it doesn't hurt recruiting for us to play in Northwest Indiana, or like it doesn't hurt us at all to play some different teams. So, which is always good. So, for those of you watching on Facebook Live, if you're just tuning in, we're here with head football coach Todd Kuska. We've had a great conversation so far, previewing a little bit of next year's football season. If you look up, we should have the football schedule posted up on Facebook right now. It should have just been posted. So if you want to take a look at that, as Coach mentioned, they're opening up next season with 2 non-conference for tentative 2-year schedules with Chesterton, Cardinal Ritter, and then back at home, staying at home with Loyola and Montini. And then they're going to go on the road for the last 4 out of 5, or 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
So with at Marion Central Catholic. So hauling all the way up north to go take on the Marion Central Catholic. And then coming back, we got one last home game at Providence before we're back on the road at Marion Catholic, at Bennett, and at Notre Dame. Right. 3 games down the stretch last year that were extremely vital for us, that those teams are probably going to have a little bit of chip on their shoulder because they were also in a good position until they had to meet a kind of a wrecking ball picking up steam there. So kind of preview that second year. We're in the second year now of the CCL ESCC combination. Second year in the Green Division. How is that kind of shaping up for another year again, and kind of in the future for reformatting after this season, if it is played, or how that goes, how you expect that to kind of go into play?
Right. Well, so second year into this new shakeup kind of conference. Last year, we played some tough teams. Montini, ourselves, Providence, Notre Dame. Those are our conference opponents, and then we cross over with Loyola and Bennett. Loyola, obviously, state power every year. Bennett was in the semis, I think. 2 out of the last 4 years or so. Notre Dame had a run before this past season. They were in the semis the previous 2 years. So it's a tough schedule. Montini played for a state championship, 2 years ago. And we were, set on a collision course with them in the quarterfinals till that, that team Sycamore kind of got up and got those guys.
The Mud Bowl Part 3.
Yeah. So, it's a very formidable schedule. Last year, you know it as well as I, sitting here saying, 1-3 to 2-3 to 3-3. We're looking at that Bennett game was the big one to get us the 5th win and qualify. And then we said we got it. Tough game at home that we kind of pulled away in the second half, and then said, hey, what the heck? Let's win the conference against Notre Dame. So we were fortunate that we had those last 2 at home last year. Now we got to go on the road up to Bennett. Where actually they play in Naperville Central, actually. And then Notre Dame, who we've never played at. I remember before this past season, we played Notre Dame one other time at St. Rita, and I believe it was 2002 in the Prep Bowl playoffs on a Wednesday night, where we went for 2. A little shout to Frank Hodgman on the guard around, which has been ruled illegal since that time. We beat them in overtime. So we've kind of rekindled some rivalries with some of these teams. Bennett, we played them in the 03 semifinals or quarterfinals on our run back in those days. So it's a tough schedule. It's different playing some of these teams, but I'm a big believer in playing different teams. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love playing a rivalry, and believe me, for all the alums out there, we want to play Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel wants to play us. We just have to get the schedules to meet up. And, hopefully things go as planned. The new course, nobody's really certain exactly the format of how things change. But, if things go our way and we win the conference, again, there's a chance that we move up into the blue, or somebody else, somebody moves down, somebody moves up. It's all up in the air right now of who's going to be doing that with what's involved. Is it enrollments? Is it wins? Is it football enrollment? There's a lot of different things, but we will be getting some of those rivalry games back. I know kids ask me all the time, when are we going to play, Carmel and Rice? And I said, well, we're going to play them. Trust me, we'll play them again. So no change. We're going to set something up for the future for sure. And that it's just got to make sure that the schedules match. And we do. The Cardinal Ritter game is actually only a 1-year contract. So, we will be open for sure week 2 in 21. So you never know what happens there too. So, but
so those of you out there watching, if you have a week 2 2021 matchup,
let us know.
Rita, email Coach Todd Kuska, and we'll see if we can make it happen. So, one last question before we switch gears again. Much like our favorite team, the Chicago Bears, dealing with a potential quarterback decision here you too will eventually have to deal with a quarterback decision going into the next year. Do you have any advice for a up and coming quarterback coach that might have to make a decision at some point with these guys?
Well, I was going to say yourself here. Well, obviously, we've got great talent. We got great quarterbacks. Brian Johnson, Tommy Ulatowski. They both had remarkable years last year, and it was challenging for both of those guys. Brian had started the first 8 games for us, and had some great moments, had some not so great moments. So we Tommy had been practicing with us most of the year and had some great practices and some good moments. And it was funny because the IHSA made the new rule this year, which they've gone back on for next year, that sophomores were not eligible to play in more than one game at a time, where it used to be the quarter rule. We had just watched there was week 8, the Bennett game. And our sophomore team, which is a great group of guys, a loaded class. We told Tommy that he was going to be, in the backup mode for us, and we needed this game, so I wasn't going to let him play in the sophomore game. And then I saw the sophomores lose a game that, if Tommy would have played with the Sophs, they would have definitely won. They just, they were just didn't have it together. You take a quarterback away, it just, so I felt really bad, and I said, Tommy's definitely playing. We have to play Tommy because I just cost that sophomore a team a win. We got to play him, and we put him in, and that's we talked, and we put him in the first half, and then second half we said let's go with Tommy. Let's see what he can do, and he had a great run. And people don't are amazed. You say in the conference championship game against I think Notre Dame. I think they 8-1 or 7-1. Conference championship. Tommy Ulatowski got his first start as a sophomore quarterback at St. Rita. And we won that game 7-0 through a great fade route.
Great pass, Isaiah Bragg in the corner made a fantastic one-handed grab, and I mean, and shout out to the defense in that game, who was absolutely. I mean, you want to talk about one of the best defensive performances in the St. Rita game against a loaded Notre Dame team, who unfortunately they were at a loss. They had an injury with a great running back that they had, and who had gotten banged up. They played Nazareth the week before, which kind of helped us a little bit.
Right.
And, but it was unfortunate not to have him play. But that Notre Dame team was so talented, which we plan on seeing again next year. They don't lose a lot; they lose a couple. Yeah. I have a couple buddies on that staff up at Notre Dame who are fantastic guys, and Eric Hennessy, I know we talk all the time. So that team was definitely loaded. So definitely have to give a shout out to the defense for that game. But,
and defense, 7-0 game. They kept them at bay the whole game, but that was Tommy's first start, and then so you go into the playoffs, and here's a sophomore that hasn't started, and Tommy played well, and he played well at times. He struggled at times, as most high school kids are going to do. And you look at a position like quarterback, as all the eyes are on you. There's a lot on you. There's a lot of pressure. And so in the playoffs, if Tommy faltered, Brian went in. Brian came back and led us on a huge drive in the semifinal against Boylan at home, and gave us a huge spark, and really cemented us into that state championship game, and we went in there, and it was back to, both of those guys are good friends, and they're both competitors, and they're going to compete. And they're going to compete for that spot, and they're going to get a chance to play. In the state championship, they both played, and they both played well, and they both had downsides. And it is with any 17, 16-year-old kid. It's going to happen. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited to watch you handle your first quarterback controversy, but there's no controversy. They're both great kids, and they both work hard. They've both got an extremely good set of tools that we're going to work on, and hopefully we get some doubles time in August if we don't get camp, and go at it. But those guys they've been there. We've got 2 quarterbacks that have battled and have both played, in the state championship, and both have done some great things. So I'm excited to see them. And I told both of them back in when we met in like February, March, I met with those guys. I said, you're going to have the greatest set of weapons around you that pretty much any St. Rita guy's ever had. So we've got, obviously Henry's a Division I wide receiver. Caleb's a Division I receiver, running back. I think Isaiah Bragg is a Division I receiver. He's got a lot of Division II scholarships and some 1AAs. But there's right there.
Who are some guys to keep an eye out? I know we talked about a loaded sophomore class. We got guys like Octavian Whitlock, AG, who we were able to get a little look at in the playoffs coming up, who is ready to explode and has more speed to fit in with all the other talent that you have. What are some other guys to keep an eye out for with that sophomore class?
You've got some linemen, which we've been short on. We're finally getting a big dose of some linemen. Valen Erickson's a big kid that transferred in. He's a Division I prospect, 6'5", 6'6", 290-pound offensive lineman. He's been there. Logan Blake's been he'll be this will be a second year up on the varsity as an old lineman. Mac Minetta, second year up with us. So you got a lot of linemen that have been there. Tommy, obviously, a quarterback, will be there. You mentioned Ock. There's a boatload of guys that just fill roles, and I think that's what's going to be great with this junior class, sophomores, obviously, but they're going to be juniors, filling in the holes of these seniors, just as these guys did this past season. There's a lot of talent. There's a good mesh, and I think they saw one of the benefits of bringing guys up in the playoffs is so they can observe and see that it's a different speed from varsity to sophomores, but it's also about camaraderie and about teamwork and about filling in the holes for each other, being role players. So they saw the epitome of that this past year with this senior class that's going to graduate and these very highly talented junior class with some sophomores sprinkled in. These guys saw the meshing going on between those classes, and that's huge. And that can't be overstated how important that is going to be. And so I'm excited. I think we've got great talent in the building, and I'm excited about a great group of guys coming in as freshmen too. The sophomores are a very talented group that were battling. They were about 7 or 8 seconds away from winning a conference in the craziest game against Montini I've ever witnessed.
Had to be one of the craziest endings. 3 touchdowns in 25 seconds or something.
Yeah, it was insane. So we've got great talent in the building, but more so great kids. And that getting back to what St. Rita is doing, we're producing great kids. We're taking great kids and making them even better if you can, academically, athletically, spiritually, socially, and that's the big thing. And I'm so excited about the time now. I was excited for this year because I was obviously going to have 2 kids in the building, a senior and a freshman. Obviously it didn't end the way we wanted for the senior this year, but I'm excited about the kids that we have in the building. They're great kids, and I'm not just football players, kids in general. Just the atmosphere that we have at St. Rita really sets us apart. People say all the time, what's the difference? What's so special about St. Rita? You can't say one thing. You got to be there. You got to be there. You got to see the kids, and as I explain it to different kids that I approach and parents, you're in school with your buddies. You're in school with your friends, and you're getting an education that's second to none, and not just in the books. You're learning how to be a man. You're learning how to be a true man in today's world. And you're making the best friends of your life. We go back to, actually coming up is my 20th wedding anniversary, which I got married in that chapel. And I say to everybody, I had 8 guys from St. Rita. One guy wasn't from Rita, but 8 guys from Rita were in my wedding party. And those are still the best friends of my life. And I know the same thing as well, your classmates. And, so I'm excited for the kids in the building to get that education and to play some great football and to be a part of what we were a part of and to join that brotherhood of alumni at the end.
So talking about being at St. Rita, and obviously you are a 1990 graduate. You were a part of the last graduating class out of the 63rd Street building before they made the move to the current campus. What was that like when that was announced, when you kind of things started to having a change in motion? Obviously you knew you weren't going to have to deal with it, but a lot of the guys, your buddies that were still at Rita, were going to have a change. And I know you tell the story, you remember moving the weight room and all that stuff. Right. So what was that like when the school made the change and it was a big deal?
Yeah, it was, I remember it. It was, obviously at the end of my senior year, we were called down to the gym, and Father Danber, who was our principal at the time, made the announcement, because I'll be honest, it's been a long time, but I don't remember ever hearing anything about it until that day in the gym that Father Danber said, we're moving, and obviously it was a lot of shock, from the students. And, as a senior at the time, we were looking around, me and my buddies, and like, okay, well, hey, we're kind of part of something big here. We're the last class out of here. And whereas the juniors and sophomores and freshmen were kind of taken aback by it, because you don't go to school, you don't pick at school because of the building, but it's the people in the building. But that's that old building. Then you were never there. Not all the alums that have seen this know from the old building. That place was one of a kind. The snake pit, the foot. That's one regret I always had. I never got a chance to coach a game in the snake pit in the old stadium. But it was. I'm sure those guys were upset. The juniors were upset. Sophomores and freshmen. But they were going to have a little more of a chance to get used to a new building. And I know the juniors, when they got to St. Rita as seniors at the new campus, they accepted it slowly. And I still run into guys say, "Oh, I was part of the old campus." I said I was too, but I'm part of the new campus too. And the only thing the thing that goes through it all, we're part of St. Rita. And Father Tom always says that when you move, when you buy a new house, you don't leave half the family behind. You move everybody. And we successfully did that. And it's amazing to think that we've been on that campus for 30 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I've been out of high school
And
for
actually,
30 years now. So, thanks for bringing that up.
And actually, fun fact, I know we had just found out, I believe that St. Rita has now been on that campus longer than Quigley South was on that
Right.
campus. So
Right.
it's kind of taken over. It's almost, I don't know what the ownership rules are, but we have a pretty good stake to it now that we've been here longer. So,
Yeah. Well,
but no, the Quigley South has definitely been was around very, very important to the community when it was around, and you never want to see any school have to go through a close or anything like that. But talk about like how that move really evolved St. Rita in terms of getting space and facilities, and how important that was for St. Rita's long-term future.
Yeah, I remember, I came on board in '96, so only a few years after we had made the move, and I was starting to teach. And I remember myself and Jimmy Cordes, a '91 grad of St. Rita. When he was working at St. Rita too in development office, we were charged with going back to the old building before they knocked it down, and to get some of the relics, get some of the things out of there. I know Father Tom sent myself and some of the football players. We carried over the shrine. That's the actual shrine of St. Rita. That's in the shrine chapel. But I remember me and Jimmy Cordes walking through the halls, and I was like, "Oh my God, this place is tiny." It was amazing seeing how much smaller that building was. But there were caverns, there were tunnels, there were a lot of different places. But the campus itself was pretty small. It was landlocked. And being at the new campus, our current campus, unbelievable facilities. I mean, you look at the stadium, and we'll be making a move to get filling in those visitor bleachers this year. We've got some things on the hook, so let's keep giving. But the campus itself, having a baseball field, having multiple football fields, multiple baseball fields. I was a baseball player back at St. Rita as well, and I remember having to walk from 63rd and Claremont to 71st and Kedzie, to play baseball, in Marquette Park. I mean, so making that move and having it all right there as a freshman at the old campus, walking through a junkyard, through over train tracks to get to the field at Lindblom Park. I mean, having everything on our campus is unbelievable. It's huge. It's beautiful. We're on our second turf field right now. The gym was just overhauled. The gym was twice the size of the old gym. I remember as a student going to the current St. Rita campus to watch like regional basketball games and looking around saying, "Oh my gosh, this gym is huge." Well, now that's our gym, so the campus itself is second to none, and anybody that says, "Well, the old campus was the old campus was nice," it did its job. We there for, I think we were there for 95 years, I want to say, 85 years. I'm not sure the exact time.
95.
It did a great job of getting young men educated. And, but now we're on the new campus. It's beautiful. It's huge. It allows us to spread, and, it allows us to get a lot of things done. You know, it's great to go by, especially in the spring where you got multiple sports practicing all over the place. Obviously, this isn't the year to see that, but you know, it's just so much better to have things right there. You know, we've got a pool, which is a huge benefit. My older son Jake was a swimmer and a water polo. Never had swimming or water polo back at the old campus. So, you know, just a beautiful place in the chapel. You know, it's unreal. I mean, I remember walking, and I still think back, how the heck did the teachers and the faculty take the entire student body from 63rd and Claremont and walk all the way to St. Rita Grammar School Chapel for church? I mean, that to me sounds amazing. It's amazing at things that probably were never reported that happened along those walks. But now we've got a chapel that is just, you know, gorgeous. You know, it's nowhere. You can't find it anywhere. So the campus has everything any high school could really look for, and then you cap it all off with the chapel, and you couldn't ask for a better place.
And when you talk about the facilities at St. Rita, it's hard not to talk about the most recent ones. Obviously, the fitness center was completed last year, which has paid off in dividends just in the short amount of time that's been open. But putting along the lines, or putting that along with the John McNicholas Baseball Clubhouse, the renovation of the gym, the new gym floor, the new bleachers, really giving that an uplift. And the expansion, we talked with Johnny about the baseball batting cages and the wrestling room expansion. So really, the facilities within the last couple of years have expanded so much, largely, in fact, due to circling around to how important days like today are in terms of a St. Rita Day of Giving, to where that capital campaign a couple of years ago was so influential because of the alumni and the support that we have.
Sure.
So how has that really played a role at you being an alumni, right, in kind of that base group of our most proud supporters that do support us financially year in and year out, that has really kind of reinvigorated the alumni base of seeing something that, especially some guys, like when I see alums come on campus, and especially now if you haven't been there for a couple of years, you see everything roughly looks the same until you go and see the blue turf in the fitness center. And then it's different. And like, or until you see the new, like you come in, you see the baseball clubhouse, and then it's like, well, this isn't the St. Rita that I went to, but it's the St. Rita. So how important are days like today in terms of really setting up the St. Rita for not only the short-term future, but the long-term future past just scholarships, but in terms of St. Rita as a whole?
Well, it's huge. I mean, days like today, it's you know, St. Rita is all about the kids, and that's what we can't lose sight of. It's always about the kids, the next generation of kids, and you know, beautifying the campus and making things even that much better. The weight room, you know, college coaches come in and say, this is better than ours. You know, I mean, it's unbelievable. The new fitness center, the baseball locker room, you know, the regeneration of the gym, everything. You know, the campus itself is gorgeous now. And you know, you can't just think about what are we doing for this group of kids. We have to think about what are we doing for the next group of kids. You know, St. Rita's been around over 100 years, and we want it to be around for a lot more than more 100 years. You know, so it's always about what can we do to keep us on the edge of getting those guys, of getting the kids in the South Side, Southwest suburbs, all over the place, giving them something, not just to come and get the great education. They are going to get a top-notch education, you know, but you can't put that on a piece of paper and sell it. You've got to get kids to see something. And unfortunately, they see beautiful things. When you have a beautiful weight room, you have beautiful facilities, the classrooms, you know, everything, the chapel, you know, it's huge. And days like today, to keep alums giving, you know, you think back of, you know, why were we at St. Rita? You know, why was I walking the halls? What kind of experience did I have when I was there? I had an unbelievable experience, and that's why I'm still there. And that's why I've got my two sons, and I can't wait, you know, to have them graduate. Obviously, you know, I was looking forward to this day with my older son for years, you know, and I've got Joey coming up, and you know, to have them have the experience I had is huge, and to give them more than what I had is the key. And as parents, you always want that. So as alums, you always want to give better things to your kids and things, and keep improving. So a day like today, to keep improving the building, keep improving the opportunity that we have for kids to come to St. Rita, that's huge. You know, we've got more things in plan for the future, you know, but we've got to make sure that everything is, you know, we're hitting all the marks right now. And a day of giving like today is huge to keep that going, to show people that St. Rita's alive. In today's day and age, it's a scary world out there, you know, but we're there. We're not going anywhere. but we need help, and we need the help because the experience that we had, myself, yourself as alums, if we want to continue that, we need help. It's the alum were there when I was in school, and we were there when you were in school, and now we have to make sure that we keep giving back. We keep the connection, keep St. Rita going and thriving. We don't want to survive, we want to thrive, and we're thriving right now as much as you can in this pandemic situation. But we are thriving in school. We are set on course to have an unbelievable year. I feel horrible for these spring sport athletes and these seniors to end it this way, but we've got some great things coming up in the future, and hopefully we cap it off with graduation and things like that in July, but we move on to have a great year next year and just keep this thing going. But days of giving are huge to keep St. Rita thriving, not surviving, and that's what we're all about. Keep the next project on, keep it moving forward.
Absolutely. And you really hit the nail on the head there, that it is so vital, especially right now, because with everything else going on with the pandemic, and that scholarship and financial aid fund becomes so critical to so many families at St. Rita, because there are families that are dealing with losses of jobs, of they have multiple kids. There's so many moving parts that everybody is dealing with right now that a lot weren't necessarily prepared for. That days like today, and for those of you that are just tuning in here, we've had an absolutely incredible day as part of the St. Rita Feast Day of Giving. We started off this morning at 8 a.m. with Father Tom McCarthy, who set the goal for us to raise at least $15,000, which is the cost of educating one student, the total cost of educating one student. But obviously, we don't charge that full tuition. We want to we try and keep our tuition as affordable as possible. But it's that scholarship and financial aid fund that is so critical to do that, to be able to do all the great things, and to give these students a first-class education as they do, as Coach Kuska said. But as he said as well, of all the facilities and everything else that goes into being a St. Rita student that sometimes we might take for granted, but it's so critical because we have these great alumni and supporters and benefactors that have been so relentless and given for so many years. That's why we did hit, and for those of you that, as I mentioned, who are catching up here, we have surpassed that $15,000 mark as the original goal. We are up over $17,000, but we have extended that. St. Rita, as we've always said, we never just stop at that first goal. We're going to continually set the bar higher. So that's why we're really pushing. If we could get to that 25,000 stretch goal today, it would be an absolutely amazing and life-changing day for so many families at St. Rita, that we could really revitalize that scholarship and financial aid fund to really be proactive and be prepared for what we're about to take on in terms of pandemic. Because as we mentioned, there are so many moving parts, and nobody's quite sure exactly when we're going to be able to get back in the building and resume some type of new normal, as we had talked about. But Coach, before we sign off, one more thing to give to the people, one more pitch to donate today as we carry on throughout the entire day. You can donate now. Click the link, I think it's right here if you're looking at the screen, that click the link to donate now. But Coach, anything for the St. Rita family watching that's been so great today?
Well, it's awesome that we're doing something like this. It's a crazy time, obviously, right now, but I can speak from not only just an alum, a teacher, but a parent of two current St. Rita students. The job I think our faculty and staff did during this whole thing was second to none. I think a lot of other schools kind of shut down during their e-learning times. I know my guys were doing homework, they were doing work, they were taking tests, taking quizzes, they had final exams. My younger son just finished his final exams today, where a lot of other schools kind of shut down and kind of backed away. And I think we as St. Rita are always leaders in everything, and said, you know what? We just got to adapt. We've got to adapt how we're going to learn. We got to adapt how we're going to teach, and adapt what we're going to do. And I think we did that, and I think as our alums are always adapting out there in the world, we did as well, faculty and staff. And you guys are putting on, Zoom meetings and Facebook Live things. So, St. Rita is alive and well, and we don't want to survive. We want to thrive. and think about, for all those alums and all those people out there, think of what St. Rita means to you, and think of why you're a part of St. Rita, and think of anything that you can do to keep that dream alive for somebody else. Because there's kids out there that want to be a part of St. Rita, and they're struggling right now. And there's kids that want to come up through the pipeline that they're going to need some help. And that's what we're here for. That's the mission overall at St. Rita High School, is to help educate the young men. Everything else is just gravy on top of it. But make sure that we can do everything in our power to make sure that next group of Rita men have that opportunity to walk down the aisle, hopefully at graduation, and get that done. So it's been a great year, crazy end of the year. But as I told my students, I said, you're a part of something, though. This is something you're living through history. This is living history right now. So make of it what you can, get out of it what you can. But as St. Rita alums, let's make sure that we can keep going forward and keep that next group of Rita men coming in the right direction, and have a chance to be a part of St. Rita.
And thank you so much, Coach, for taking time. I know it was a little bit longer than we
problem.
originally talked about, but I thought it was so great to be able to catch up and get kind of a St. Rita football State of the Union, kind of check in where we're at and where we're going. So everybody out there, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. And not just in this session, it's been great. You guys have been awesome, from watching all the views come in from Coach John Nee and I this morning at 9:30. And then we checked in with a couple St. Rita students, Nick Aden and Judy Martin this afternoon, and then finishing up here as well. So if you did miss any of those interviews, those are still available. You could go on our St. Rita Facebook page. You could see them there, or head to the St. Rita YouTube page. They're all uploaded there. But guys, as we talked about, it is so vital. Keep donating. And as Father Tom mentioned this morning in his kickoff video, go back and watch that. He calls for a challenge of, please help us do something. It doesn't have to be a donation. It could be simply sharing this video, or sending it to a friend, or sending it to someone is keeping up to date with St. Rita. Or simply just share a prayer. Share a prayer with the entire St. Rita family, for everybody out there affected that's been trying to do their best to make this new normal a day in and day out positive. So guys, thank you so much for everything that you've done today. We will be back at 7 o'clock. Father Tony Pizzo will be live on YouTube, I believe. We'll be posting out the link on our St. Rita social media for our St. Rita Novena tonight. So join us tonight at 7 p.m. The link will be posted on St. Rita Facebook. And we'll be back again at 8 o'clock for a very special day send-off from, I believe it's President Jim Quaid, as well as Director of Advancement Jimmy Jukinski, at the last Lights for the Fight, coming from live from the St. Rita Football Stadium, or coming to you at 8 o'clock tonight. So keep an eye out for that as we continue on this St. Rita Feast Day of Giving. Coach, thank you so much for having us. And signing off for Coach Todd Kuska, my name is Rob Gallick, and thanks for joining us. And go Rita, go.
Yep, go Mustangs.